Hey everyone, in this lesson we're going to talk a little bit about your first major assignment, which is the They Say paper. So one of the very best ways to become a better writer is to look at how other writers do their job and try to emulate their strategies. So if you want to make an argument, you can look at how other people argue their points and try to figure out what they're doing that works well and what they're doing that doesn't work so well so that you can emulate the good strategies yourself. That's going to be the goal with the They Say paper. We're going to look at what they say and how they say it and try to figure out what's going well so that we can do it ourselves. Now, your They Say paper can be found here under the assignments. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. This paper is going to be due on Monday, May 15th. Now, when you turn in any paper, you're going to post it to Safe Assignment. I'm going to use Safe Assignment to grade it. Safe Assignment will also check to make sure that you're not plagiarizing. Remember that part of the course for getting your participation grade is going to be doing your daily discussion assignments, and every week one of your discussion assignments will be to do a peer review of your classmates' papers. So that means that you don't get to wait until May 15th to write this thing. You actually have to have a draft of it done a few days earlier so that there's time for you to review other people's papers and for people to review your paper. So your rough draft will be due for workshop on Thursday, May 11th at noon. You'll post it to the group discussion forum. You'll respond to other people's papers and people will respond to yours by the next day at midnight. And then you'll have the whole weekend to do revisions based on your peers' comments so that you can have the final draft due on May 15th. So let's talk a little bit about the specific goals of this paper. The idea is that you're going to study how this person argues. How does he use ethos, pathos, and logos, which we'll talk about in a future lesson, to target a specific audience and convince that audience of a specific purpose? Again, subject, purpose, and audience, something we're going to discuss in a future video. The article that you choose obviously needs to be one in which someone's trying to convince you of something and arguing in order to do that. If you pick an article that's simply informative, it's going to be hard to write this paper. In fact, probably impossible. So you should pick some sort of opinion piece where somebody has an opinion on an issue. It should relate to your topic. So we were using the idea of the border wall as a potential topic that you could talk about over the course of the semester. Say you find an article in which someone's in favor of the border wall and is using ethos, pathos, and logos to convince you that you should be in favor of it as well. Well, you take that article and you write a 2 to 3 page summary and analysis of it. Now, when I say 2 to 3 pages, that means 2 to 3. You don't need to write 4, 5, 6 pages, and in fact, you shouldn't. You'll lose points if you write too much, and you don't want to write less than 2. So make sure you've got at least 2 full pages. So 2 to 3 page summary and analysis. The third secret word is lizard. Things that you need to discuss in this paper. You're going to give a brief summary of the work that places it in its historical and cultural context. So when I say brief summary, this is probably no more than like a paragraph. We don't need to know every detail. This is not a book report. As we'll discuss in a future lesson, you should summarize with your point in mind, which means that your summary really only needs to go into enough detail that we understand the specific issues that you're talking about, which are going to be the issues about how he's accomplishing his purpose or failing to accomplish his purpose. When we talk about historical and cultural context, we need to understand when, where, what was going on in the world at the time that the article was written. An article written about the border wall in 2016 would be different than one written in 2017 because in 2016, people didn't know whether or not Trump would be the president. In 2017, he is the president. So we have a different outlook on things, knowing who's actually in charge of the country. So we need to know when it happened. We need to know about where the article is written. An article written about the border wall by an American is going to be much different than an article written about the wall by a Mexican. So knowing where it comes from is important. Knowing who the author is important. Give us this contextual information early on so that we understand the scenario in which the article was written. You need to talk about the author's subject, purpose, and audience. One of the key things here, or probably the most important, is purpose. You're going to be evaluating whether or not he actually succeeds at accomplishing his purpose, so you need to make it clear what this purpose is. Subject and audience also important. We'll go into more detail with those in a future lesson. You will look at how the author uses ethos, pathos, and logos to accomplish this purpose. We'll discuss ethos, pathos, and logos in a lesson soon, but you want to look for specific examples of each of them as he's making his argument. How does he establish credibility? How does he get the audience emotionally involved? How does he lay out a logical argument? These are things that you're going to be looking for, and you're going to be using textual evidence to support the claims that you make. So when you find an example of pathos, you would quote, you would summarize, you would paraphrase. Bring those things into your paper so that we see exactly what they say, and then what you say, what I say, as a response to how effective is this method of using ethos, using pathos, using logos. At the end, you'll actually make an assessment of whether he accomplishes his purpose or not. A good argument probably will have accomplished the purpose and convinced you that the wall should be built. A bad argument may not accomplish it. You might read that article and say, no, I still think we shouldn't have a wall. Talk about why the article is successful or why it is not. For this paper, key things to remember: you are looking at analyzing his argument. Don't go off on your own points of view. It doesn't matter whether you think the wall is a good idea or not. It matters whether or not he accomplishes his purpose. Now, if you have any questions about this, you can take a look at the example paper that I've posted. Now, this example paper I wrote a few years ago, and it's slightly different than the actual assignment that you'll be doing because it's focusing on a song. But songs can try to persuade people of things as well. In the song 99 Problems, Jay-Z is trying to show the listener what it's like to be a black man in America. The reason that Jay-Z has 99 problems is because he is a young black man in America. He talks about getting pulled over by the police. He talks about people judging him for the music that he makes. He talks about a lot of the difficulties that he's faced because he's an African American. He's trying to impart this message that he is discriminated against despite his success. So as you're reading my example paper, think about how is Jay-Z trying to convince people to understand what it is that he's saying. Think about what is Jay-Z's purpose, how does he use ethos, pathos, and logos, and is he successful? Read through my example, and I've got comments here that says what I'm actually doing in each section of the paper. You'll do something similar. You'll see that I introduce the cultural context of the article, or of the song itself. You'll see that I give specific quotes from the article or from the song to actually back up what I'm saying. You'll see that I discuss ethos, pathos, and logos, and at the end, I make a claim that yes, Jay-Z is successful. So use this paper as a model, and it'll help you to make your own paper follow the actual assignment. You don't have to have a works cited page for this paper because you're only going to be responding to the one article, but do make sure that you give appropriate credit, use quote sandwiches and signal phrases when you bring in the author's words to make sure that we know who it is that's talking at any particular time. Remember, rough draft due Thursday at noon, final draft due Monday at noon as well, and let me know if you have any questions. Best of luck.